when you believe enough in yourself to be confident and put that step out in faith and just kind of dive in, that's where it starts.
I like to think of luxury as an abundance of value.
Everything takes time in the industry. You need experience. And time is relative, but you need experience.
Hey guys, welcome to Closing the Coast, presented by our friends over at Southern Tide. I'll be your host, Dylan Staples, and this podcast will dive into entrepreneurship, investment, real estate, and a whole host of other topics. We're really looking forward to having you with us, so sit back, relax, and let's get into the show. Welcome, everyone, to the inaugural episode of Closing the Coast. I'm Dylan Staples, your host, and I'm joined today by some lovely people, some of the people that make this possible, and that is Jonathan and Jessica Hugo.
Woo woo.
Woo! Hello, hello.
Yeah, great to have you guys. So both of these guys have been hugely important in first starting the podcast, but I met these two quite a while ago. I've known them for quite a while, but I met them in a business capacity because we were selling real estate and trying to overcome the boring, mediocre video content that most realtors were putting out. And I reached out on a whim because I had seen some of the videos that you guys had done. And I kind of just assumed that you guys didn't shoot real estate, but I was going to see if I could convince you. Like, if I had any sway at the moment, I could try and convince you. But so, first of all, let's rewind the tape. Jonathan and Jessica Hugo, you guys both own and operate what?
We own
I work
and
for
operate.
Jessica.
Yeah,
and
John works for me.
I'm currently hopefully still employed. But
I own a business. No, just kidding. We run a media production company, primarily weddings and commercial clients like real estate agents, or we've worked for the Tiger Woods Foundation. We've worked for Royce, just producing like high quality content for various either events or planned content. And we've been doing this for 6 years now. I think this might be our 7th year of being in business.
Wow.
We started the year that we got married, and like I said, it's my business. No, just kidding.
Wait, so
it became, well, I guess technically I pulled her into it, but
Yes. It was Jonathan Hugo Productions. First.
That was the day, yeah.
that was it. So wait.
I think
So
unfortunately there's still maybe a website out there called Jonathan
so
Hugo
there's still a
Productions,
website.
but-
So wait, so your wedding business is, because you guys have different branches of your company that
Yes.
operate different types of media production.
Exactly. So yeah, we have Hugo Film Co., which is our wedding portrait side. So I guess like primarily weddings, but we'll do some like portraits and couple sessions and things like that. But
And then 17th and Ocean is our commercial side, where everything that is more corporate falls under. But we'll do a lot of branding work or live events or things like that. And then for the occasional agent that we really like, real estate videos on the
Real
creative
estate.
side.
On the creative
Not your
side.
average real estate
Not
videos.
your just walk through the
I would
property.
say, yeah, 17th and Ocean is like how we work with companies, I guess, like on a business side, because Hugo Film Co. is the like weddings, and it's a personal event, right? Like it's your personal memories. And then the 17th and Ocean is
B2B.
a B2B, yeah, where we help companies that usually in the luxury space that provide like high-end services or products and partner with them to create content that goes along with it.
Yeah.
So.
Right. And I think when I had initially found you guys, I had not seen 17th and Ocean, or it wasn't as publicized yet that you guys were doing it. You were working with people at the time, but I remember I remember the first video that I saw you guys do, and I remember showing it to like everybody because I was like, I know this guy. And I
Wait, what
I know
video
these
was
people.
it?
Which video was this?
So this was the video that you guys shot in Norway for a
Oh,
wedding.
The wedding video.
And it was
Oh, yeah.
it was incredible.
You remember that video?
I remember it so well.
That was
I
the
remember
OG wedding video.
the sparklers. I remember the military the outfits.
Yeah.
I mean, it was it, and we'll probably link that somewhere because it's just a phenomenal video. And it goes to show that even
That
when you
was my
guys were
second
like,
wedding video, but
your second wedding video was incredible.
well,
That was the video that like kickstarted our business. Like we shot that wedding, and then it was like, okay, this is what we want
okay,
to do.
disclaimer too. This was back before it was as popular doing wedding videos. So I think anything that had slow motion in it and was
We literally
decently
watched that
shot
video.
was like, this is amazing.
We literally watched that video last night. I have not watched that video in 4 years. And I was like scrolling through our Instagram. I was like, I want to go all the way back to the beginning. It's like the first video that's on our Instagram. And I was like, oh, look at this. It's so sweet and sentimental and so different than our style now. But yeah, like Jonathan said, back then I feel like anything that was in slow motion, people are like, ooh, cinematic.
It was great. I honestly think if I watched it now, I would appreciate it the same way. But I remember seeing it on Instagram, and I was like, oh my gosh, like I hadn't talked to John in a while, and you guys had just moved back, and I remember seeing it and then going from that video, being the typical consumer that you would like, to go from that video and then go onto your website and look at the
That's so
video that was
cool.
produced. And I was like, oh my gosh, this is like super high tier. And so naturally, I just assumed that this was both a wedding business, but also a high-end wedding business. And so, which was fair. I mean, you guys do operate a very high-end wedding business. So tell me how that morphed from shooting, because you guys shot primarily weddings, and then you guys decided to start doing some creative work for large brands.
Yeah. I would say like, the sleeper brand of 17th and Ocean kind of came out because it
was in the pandemic.
It was during the pandemic, and the year before we started getting our stride with like weddings and events, and that was like our main kind of momentum we were pushing. And then kind of similar to like what you said is like, hey, they do these, but maybe I could have them do commercial work. Or whether it's real estate or like events or things like that. So we had a few clients that reached out to us in a similar way, like, hey, you do weddings, but could you do this project for us? So we had a handful of those. That's like, we worked with like the Tiger Woods Foundation and a couple other companies. And the one thing we did find is when they reached out to us, it was like, hey, do you do this? Not sure, not a confident, where on the wedding side, someone's like, we love your work, we want to hire you.
Right.
So we really took some time trying to decide which way. We were actually rebranding Hugo Film Co. at the time.
This was in 2020.
In 2020, we were revamping to try to go more after like the luxury market and kind of recreate our brand identity.
Mm-hmm. We decided to split and just create a separate company because we did really enjoy doing the commercial work, but we felt like
it was introducing like a lot of confusion, I think, in the commercial side.
Yeah,
there's kind of an asterisk by wedding videographers. It's like, oh, you're starting out, like, and I think just because the wedding industry is such a unique niche where most people that aren't in it don't realize like how, like, the breadth and how broad it is, and like the luxury market is like very extensive and crazy. Right. And we love it. It's like a really cool industry we've shot over like 100 weddings now, and it's been like really fun, and we definitely still love it. But I think it would introduce a lot of confusion to people that you're working with commercial clients. Like, well, can I trust you? You guys shoot weddings. Like, is this actually what you do? And I think creating that separate brand created that trust and ability. Like, no, we do this at a really high level, and like that brand specifically is tailored to service those clients.
Mm-hmm. Right. So I think that was one of the things that I started noticing when we started working together. And a lot of people were like, oh, a lot of people I think locally knew who you guys were because of your wedding business and things. Mm-hmm. And what I began to notice was like, okay, well, a lot of these photographers, a lot of the people that offer, services like that just say they do video. It's great. It kind of, scratches the itch, and it can accomplish maybe what you need to do, or a property tour or whatever. But there was that attention to detail that makes you guys such a, unique service in the commercial side, is that weddings demand, one, that you shoot things really well on the fly because there's no second, shot. Yeah. And then two, that you guys are focusing on the details because they're all about the details. Mm-hmm. And I think that's what large scale videography for real estate lacks, is that you don't have someone focusing on the details. It's here's a bedroom, here's a kitchen. It's not about
it's not emotional.
Right. Yeah, you need that story. You need that narrative.
Yeah. Right? I think some people overlook, especially at least unique for us, because we don't shoot real estate specifically where we're shooting like 5 houses a day. Like we do, like, I think max has been like 2 a week ever. It's very like sprinkled in throughout when we do them. Because usually our shoots have like more planning involved, and it's a lot more intentional. So it's natural if you're shooting a lot, there's only so much like attention you can do. But I think for us, whether it's weddings or anything we produce, having that understanding that just like the littlest thing can take you out of the moment, especially in a video. Like very, like for us, it's very this like films with feeling is one of like kind of like our slogans that we've used in the weddings, where it makes you feel something and has a connection, and that's what resonates with people. So if there's a little detail that's off in the shot or the audio, like it takes you out of it completely. So it's been unique doing it with real estate, where what if we take that same idea in this luxury home? Because at the end of the day, people, it's going to be their home, whether it's their second home or fifth home or whatever it is. It's somewhere that you're going to call home and be in, and you want them to feel what it's like to be, like have that connection with it. And also for the client selling the home, like showing that you're really going the extra mile and like creating something that's like the full experience for doing everything you can. Like you're talking about like some of your clients, like having like colleagues reach out, seeing like the listings of videos you guys have posted and showing like the reach that you guys are like taking a full-fledged marketing effort to
Right.
produce them. So,
Right.
um,
Well, it's nice to have somebody to partner with that understands that. I mean, when people, and that's the whole point of like when you guys have diversified, that's been really cool to watch, is that when somebody just focuses on one thing, like you said, they can lose that, that ability to kind of focus on those details. And what's nice, I think, in terms of communicating to you guys, is you understand the luxury space. That's the space you're in. And so when I like tell you about kind of this crazy idea, you're able to, one, rein it in, and two, put it into a video and match exactly what I was thinking. I don't have to like sit down with you on the computer and walk through each of the shots of how I want it to look.
Yeah.
I just tell you what I like am imagining, and you guys just make it so, which is I think obviously why you guys have been tremendously successful in both the wedding and the commercial space.
No, I think that's something that obviously we have our toes in a lot of different kind of areas, but still having like one consistent thing, and at least for that's like luxury, and not like from a pretentious point of view, but I think for us, like we want to do everything to the full extent and not hold back. So the natural progression is like things of luxury where it may cost like 10 times as much for being 20% better, but the appreciation of just having every little thing thought through, and it makes our job easier. Frankly, if we're shooting like a property that's just immaculate and everything's been thought through, because then we can produce that same thing with like a wedding event or whatever it may be. But just that attention to detail all the way through it is just something that we like appreciate.
I like to think of luxury as an abundance of value. Like when you think of luxury, you're thinking of like what you're getting from whatever it is, a product or an experience. Like it's something so above and beyond what something that is considered budget or mid-tier. Like it's such an abundance of value that you're getting from that product or experience. And so when we're walking through the product experience with our clients of like going from beginning concept to final result, we want the client to experience value in every single stage. Like, wow, that was so helpful, this conversation we had in finalizing the vision, or us trying to help like solve problems. Like, oh, okay, well, if this is the end result you're wanting, like we need to talk about these things or do these things, and like always being one step ahead to make sure that the client feels like they're totally taken care of. They don't have to like think about anything, and that at the end of the day, they feel, oh wow, Jonathan and Jess just totally understood me, totally understood the vision that we wanted, and then the product reflects whatever emotion they're trying to convey. But yeah, it's been really fun.
I think the personal side is huge. I think especially on the both on the wedding and the commercial. Weddings, we're not necessarily having like long-term relationships as much with our clients, versus commercial. We have more repeat business, I guess we'd say.
Sure,
we've done like obviously shoots and stuff after with our clients for families, but I think that trust and understanding that provides value. I think, like you said, that value proposition of you're bringing so much value where it's insane, where it's just like your point of, oh, you get it. You're not having this fear of the outcome, and it's bringing up things you may not even thought of. And for us, especially what I get really excited about on the commercial side is I love business. I love media production is great, but I get way more excited about business, and to be able to dive in and understand what someone's doing currently, but most importantly, where they want to go. I think knowing where they want to go, media can be a really good median for that. Media. That's ironic, media. But an avenue to be able to pursue that, where if you're wanting to go into this, whether it's a pivot or just kind of going further in your field and being better at what you're doing, understanding that, and then be able to not just be like, oh, you want this video, we'll produce it, but be able to have input with our clients to know what's actually the most effective way to do that. Because we've had a lot of clients where they have one idea and we talk through it from more of a business perspective, and we come up with a totally different concept. Whether it's just a totally separate set of videos or whatever it may be. But yeah, that's what we have a lot of fun with, of just be able to have that relationship with our clients.
So that was all like very super poignant. So let's step it back, because I think this is going to be one of the most important and interesting things to anybody watching and listening to this. Is you guys are both, I think let's just throw, you guys are both very young.
15.
Not a day over. But you're super young, and I think a lot of people will be surprised hearing you say these things, because they come from a place of obviously business maturity, personal maturity. Those things are obvious when you guys talk. So how do you think, like, do you think that obviously being young in your field, has some effect, but being young in business, has it been an imposition at all to scaling or growing or being taken seriously? Or do you guys not even consider it when you're kind of going for?
It
Beginning
definitely,
for sure.
it definitely did when
Oh.
we started our business
was like
because we
everything.
looked so young.
Dude, I look back at stuff and was like, how did anyone hire me?
Oh my gosh! Even
We were
just
young,
from, like,
but I looked
the
way younger
outfits
than I
that we
was.
would wear, like Jonathan wearing shirts and pants that were too big for him, and like, oh my
And I'm
gosh,
wearing stuff too small.
It was
for me,
only
but
you,
it's okay.
Jonathan.
the way we presented ourselves, I think, was very youthful, and I think we had to overcome that hurdle. For example, I remember one wedding client, like, I think we had a consultation, and she literally asked us how old we were, and we told her, and she was really shocked. And then
Well, it came up at the end because you both went to the same school. They both went to Santa Clara. And
She
then
was
I was
like,
like,
"Oh,
oh,
what year did you
what class are you in?
graduate?"
Just
It was
like,
like
shoot,
10
like, I
years
am.
apart.
There's a 10-year delta.
I think you might have still been in school at the time.
Yeah. So I haven't graduated.
Afterwards, she emailed saying, loved our conversation, would love to hire you. I just have one question. What do people say to you when they question how old you are? And I was like, so
It's a
you're
fair
questioning
question.
how old I am?
That's a fair question. Yeah.
Yeah. And I remember
We were very offended at the time. But now looking back, it was probably
I
a fair
felt
question.
I had mixed feelings. I was like, well, what does my age have anything to do with my skill or like the quality of work that I produce? And I remember feeling like, oh, I'm going to write her this whole email explaining why like we're the best at what we do. And then I don't remember who we showed the email to.
one of my sisters or
Yeah.
so.
And she was like, tone it back. Like your work speaks for itself and you don't even need to like address the issue. If it's an issue for her, it's an issue for her. But if it's not an issue for you, then don't make it an issue. And so I think we just responded with something that was along the lines of like, our clients love our work. They don't question how old we are. Like, we would love to work with you. And if you feel the same, like, let's get a contract signed. And she responded so positively to that. She was like, okay, great, I'll sign a contract. And no further questions were asked. And I think that was a really empowering experience for us because it validated our feelings of like, our age does not need to be an impact in this equation and it doesn't need to come up. And so it gave us a lot of confidence. And then moving forward, I feel like we obviously learned a lot. We gained a lot more experience. So then now I feel like we're at a point where people don't question our youthfulness.
Now it's funny because now everyone a lot of clients are younger than us. So it's kind of,
That's gotta be
almost like I'm
it's
getting
gotta be a
almost too
trip.
old.
You're
Yeah,
like,
it's kind of a
wait,
trip.
hold on a
Yes.
second.
Yeah.
It was
It's
supposed
like
to be that everybody
positive
was
that we're
older. Yeah.
at least
Yeah.
close in age. I think in a lot of ways, I think it was a benefit because it can take time everything takes time in the industry. You need experience. And time is relative, but like you need experience. And the more you do something, the better you're going to get at it. But it's very much the quality of reps, not just like the time. And I think a lot of people have this viewpoint, at least for us in the wedding industry, you got to put in your time.
Right.
And that's true to a sense of if you just go into it not knowing what you're doing, you're not servicing clients. But to me, it's almost like a pressure cooker. Like you could something can take a long time, but if you use a pressure cooker and you like really focus on quality reps and really go full in, you can get there a lot quicker. It's not an overnight success necessarily, and not like get rich quick or a thing that avoids hard work. It's actually like really hard work, but it's this like obsession, attention to detail where you're going to really
to hone your craft.
I think for us, we really had like the backs against the wall while we were in college starting the business and we were getting married and we really had to make this work. So we're like, the only option is to make this work. And then we believe that we were good at what we did and we had value and we want to do it the best possible way. And I mean, the big reason why we started our business is we saw a lack of service at what we wanted to do, there wasn't enough people servicing at the level that we thought it could be done. And we saw like an opportunity to create value for people.
Right.
And then the money followed. It wasn't like, I think our approach was what's like a need that needs to be filled and where can we provide value to people? And I was like, oh my gosh, like we could do this. And then we were blown away by like, wait, we could charge more money and then we'd like be networking people like, oh, you need to double your prices. I'm like, oh my gosh, like I thought we were going for here. And then suddenly we're like above our 10-year goal in like a year. I'm like, oh my gosh, like this is so cool. But I think when you come at it of just like, I want to make money.
Yeah,
without understanding you need to provide
Yeah.
value for others to do that is a totally different way to come at it. And making money is not a bad thing at all, but
it's got to be a byproduct.
yeah, it'd be a byproduct of like, you're looking in the rearview mirror and like,
When we were young, I think that was really hard to understand. I think when you're young, you just want to make money. And like, I remember feeling like, oh yeah, we really cared about what we were doing, but obviously you have bills to pay, you need to survive. And like, chasing after. It's like that. What is it? Where it's like the interview question of like, well, why do you want to work here? And it's like, well, because I want money. Like,
Yeah, right. I need money to survive.
I need money to survive.
Anyways.
But I think, yeah, when we were young, I think we had a lot of passion for what we were doing, which helped like motivate us because we really enjoyed the work.
Yeah.
And then the money followed. And then now as we've grown in our business, like what we're really passionate about is the value component of like how much value we can provide to our clients and the experience that we provide. And maybe less so about like the nitpicky video stuff, like that kind of stuff we were like so into. And now it's second nature.
I think we like, after when you're in it for so long, you start to see the bigger picture of the situation.
Yeah.
Right.
Like,
it's about
weddings,
the experience. It's
yeah,
not as much about like getting that
It's not the
one
how, it's the why.
vignette.
Yeah, and you
of,
see
like,
the whole thing like from, it's just interesting. It's the same situation, just your perspective totally changes how you see it. And when we first started, we were just like, video is the most important. Like they were just like tunnel vision, like
super high quality video,
no idea what else
insane
is going
quality.
on. And now I'm like, oh, like you care about like your guest experience, and like there's so many things that go into it, and you don't want, like for us, like for instance, like we don't like when you go take pictures or videos with a couple, you know, like we're very big with our clients. Like we make it very minimal and quickly because some things that we focus on is getting really good at doing it efficiently. So you can actually enjoy your wedding. Cause I'm like, it's not a photo shoot. Some people want to go do it for like an hour and that's fine. But for us, usually our clients want to get basically the equivalent. Yeah. Have the equivalent of like the hour portrait session in 5 minutes and then go enjoy the wedding and get like, enjoy it and have it not be a just produced like photo shoot. It's a wedding and it's a really fun day and you want to have memories.
You just want to document.
You don't want like fake memories because then what's the point? But offset side tangent of when we were younger, like I think we learned a lot of lessons quickly. And I think that's what, like having to deal with that email of, oh, what do people question about your age versus if we just started the business while we were in our 30s, no one would probably ask that. Maybe they would ask about how long we were in business, but we got asked a lot of tough questions and we had to learn how to respond, where we first draft this like 5-paragraph thing of talking about who we worked for and all this stuff, and then realized
in conclusion.
Yeah. And then we were like, oh, this just seems to be like a 3-sentence thing. And even looking back at some emails, like, oh my gosh, we were so long-winded for no reason.
I agree. I did the same thing. But this is addressing, I think, what you said to kind of corral it into one thing, which is you guys have figured out how to solve problems. People pay other people to solve problems, and people pay other people handsomely to solve very big issues, which is how do I cogently document a beautiful wedding and put it all together into a very nicely produced video, or how do I tell my story as a brand, or as in my case as a realtor, how do I tell the story of the property? And I think that's why, I mean, probably we have connected as much as we did at the beginning is because we shared that at a young age. And I think we probably all went through that similar situation where we were like, okay, how do we make money? And then we realized like that's the worst way to make money is to ask the question, how do you make money? Yeah. It's how do you solve problems?
Yeah.
If you can solve problems, the money comes. Exactly. Nobody, you don't need to, if you're just out there solving problems, like people will pay you for that.
Yeah.
So in that same light, obviously, I mean, I know this, but for everybody that doesn't know this, you guys are kind of, I mean, quasi real estate junkies as well. So how do those things kind of like, how does your business and your perspective on all of that, and then your knack for real estate, like how are all these things interwoven?
That's a great question. I mean, I've always been into real estate. I think growing up, like my parents were in real estate, and I see the value proposition and how like just, I mean, you look at real estate 30 years ago and you see the growth. You're like, okay, like the basic and just like passive income. And I think for us, I mean,
peeling back the layers.
I think real estate for us is like our side hobby. Like we have our bread and butter, which is our businesses, and then real estate is our almost like our passion project, and also like our retirement plan at the same time. Like I think in a traditional sense, we don't have 401ks and natural things that like bigger corporations feed into for retirement plans. So when you're self-employed, you have to be thinking about the future, and it's either like saving or
I mean, to me, I think it's much better than a 401k, but
I agree.
I mean,
I agree.
I'm on board with that.
I agree.
I think like this could be a whole series, but on the whole podcast for just, I mean, there's so many things you could go into from just compared to the stock market and a lot of things. And
my only point is that being self-employed, you have to get creative with your retirement options because you don't have traditional retirement options.
You don't.
That an employee would have.
Yeah, and I think especially living in California, we're a very high appreciating market.
Yeah.
I mean, from a very basic point of view, I just love going through like the whole building, like I love it. It's just fun. I love seeing, and I think does have a parallel to video work, or photography, or branding, where you have a vision of what something's going to be, and not everyone has that same idea. Where I could walk through a house that's like, we're going to remodel, and I can see what it's going to look like when it's done.
Yeah, you've got the vision.
And
you're a
I
creator.
get super excited about like being a creator in that sense. So like we did like a remodel on our house, and like going through the whole process of where we're going to move walls, and trying things that are new that kind of feel like intimidating if you're like dealing with plumbing and dealing with contractors and all these things. And after you do it, you're like, whoa, that actually wasn't that bad. Like starting a business, like there's so many things, and you do it. And then like we both done it. And then the idea of like even this studio, little subtle plug. But I mean, we talked about it for a couple of days, and then we decided to do it after we went out to dinner, talked about it. And then I think we looked at offices, I think the next day.
The next day, yeah. It was literally, I think this was one of the spaces the next day. Jessica's smiling. She's like, oh my gosh. We'll have to talk about that.
But
I think real estate is still related to solving problems. I really do.
I do too.
People need housing. People have to live somewhere. And whether you want to get creative of like creating a short-term rental with Airbnb, and it's a way for people to take vacations and stay in new places, or you're going to invest in long-term homes and provide housing for somebody that wants to be a renter, like you're still solving a problem. And I think when you reframe it in that way, like it becomes a lot more fun and enjoyable. I know you have a lot of fun doing it, but
I love it.
I think it really goes back to that.
No, I mean that's the story, right?
Yeah.
That's the narrative of remodeling anything, like Jonathan's saying, is like you guys took a piece of clay, so to speak, and you molded it with your house, right? It was kind of raw, it was unpolished, it was unfinished, and then you make it into something. You're solving that problem. You're also filling a need, because there are a lot of people that don't share that ability to have that vision, or maybe don't have the time to have that vision, and you've created value for someone in a different way. And of course, they'll pay you for it, but you've created that value.
Well, yeah, and that's what I think that's such a cool topic that I feel like we could talk a lot about, of just what is creating value. And like the idea, okay, you buy a house for $500,000, you spend $100,000 on it, and why is it worth 900 or $1 million now?
Right.
Like that doesn't well, I mean, why would it be worth less? Because it's that value. If someone buys it for $1 million, where did you get that $400,000? Like,
right.
You created it. Like you created value there, where that house was actually worth it to somebody, because there's another house at the same price, like you get into the market of it. But that idea where you're not taking wealth, you're not taking money from somebody else. Like, you know what I mean? Like
you're solving a problem.
You're solving a problem that you're creating wealth out of it.
Yeah.
And I think it's the same thing if we take a brand that maybe does a really good service. They have like no website and it sucks. And we help create a new brand, a new website, make it easier to book, and like do this whole thing, and say they spend like $50,000 on this rebrand. And now the business is like doing like 4 times the amount of revenue.
Right.
That business is now worth like whatever 4 times, or however you want to do your multiplier on it. But that just created value.
Right.
And the input multiplied, like created this way bigger output.
Right.
And along those lines, usually things that are harder and more inconvenient, or people don't want to do, has a bigger output. Like where homes, like if less people want to do home remodels and deal with it,
and deal with the builder,
deal with this whole thing. Yeah. Especially on a luxury level, to spend all the time and thinking through whether it's hiring people to do it all, and then you have higher costs for doing it yourself. It's just a lot of hurdles to go through. So that inherent means less people are going to do it. So there's higher value for it. And people will spend more money to not have to do it.
That goes to the same thing, I think, that we're harping on, and I think that people ought to realize, especially younger people, because it took us time, all of us, and it took us, realization over time, and maybe speaking to other people or going and learning the lesson yourself, is that some of the best advice I'd ever been given by somebody was, I was talking to a colleague of mine that sells a ton of real estate, and he sells a lot of real estate in San Diego, and he told me, there's an older, like I said, well, if I'm going to compete against an older person or someone that has a lot of tenure in my business, I don't have the ability to pull out a portfolio of X, Y, and Z like they do, right? And he said, well, you're working harder. And I said, well, what about the client? What about the older client that comes to me and goes, you've never sold a house in my neighborhood, or you've never sold at this price point, or whatever. How do I create value for that person? And I think the value comes from, just like in all of these spheres, is the older folks that are typically, or the more established businesses or whoever, they have lots of money, but they don't have time. And when you're younger and you're first getting started in your business, or you're building houses or whatever, you have a lot of time, and you also have knowledge, but you're trading that obviously for money. So as you establish yourself, a lot of these people will look to younger people that have that time and knowledge because they don't have the time to find that knowledge or just the time itself. And so that was a really valuable lesson because I started realizing, okay, well, no, I do have value. I have the ability to create value out of essentially nothing. And we always think as young people that the scale is so tipped that the older people or the more established businesses or whoever it is, oh wow, like I have to really try and do something to kind of tip that scale back in my favor. Whereas if you looked at it through their eyes, they actually really look at the scale the other way.
Yeah.
It's really tipped in your favor because you have
all the
time and knowledge.
Yeah.
And they have neither. They just have money, so they'll pay you for it, right?
Which and I think the knowledge side, like when you're young, you could learn a lot, like reading books, and I mean, especially now, there's so much education out there. Where I mean, I'm always like reading multiple books now. I mean, in high school, I think
impressive.
I read one book. No, it's not impressive. I read very slowly.
A single book.
And I have to read. I'm very dyslexic, so it takes a long time. But our girls take a long time to put to bed, so it gives me a lot of time to read. But when you're younger, like you could do that whole like compounding effect of kind of whatever you want, pressure cook, or whatever you want to call it. Of
Just
if you can add to like
everything.
as much leverage as you can give yourself, which like real leverage of like knowledge and experience of like putting yourself in situations to start gaining that experience. But if you have little experience, but a lot of knowledge, that can start compounding. And if you have the knowledge to do it really well and train on the front end, like for those first few shoots we got, if we would just screwed up and didn't do a good job, it probably would have it would have set us back a while, and it would have hurt our reputation. And we kind of had to perform, right? Like we had a couple like shoots, like we had this one commercial shoot that we had to like do a 5-minute video, like that afternoon we shot it and then had to produce it that night. And the client was a little stressed. We were definitely really stressed.
I was like, what did you get us into?
Yeah. It was really fun, and they loved it, and Jessica crushed it. I mean, I was out there shooting. She was editing this thing super quick. But now, like, they've been our client for like 5 years now.
That's awesome.
And that was a combination of like a friend of ours he was like a mentor of ours that helped us get going in the business, and he like helped us get the job. But the reason why he trusted us is because we delivered on jobs we worked for him for. So it's just, how do you build that reputation? And I think a lot of times you have to start somewhere.
Yeah.
But realizing that every little bit counts, and basically once you start, like it's, I don't know, you're live. Like it's like you're going, even if you're young, you're either going to be seen as like, wow, they're young, but they're really professional. They do a really good job.
Right.
Or it's like, no, they're just young and they're, you know what I mean?
It's almost
like,
it's almost more impressive. It's kind of funny. I talk to a lot of older people. They're like, oh my gosh, because I dress for work, right?
Yeah.
And they're like, oh my gosh, a young person that has a collared shirt on, like it's a shocking thing. It's almost like you're setting yourself up for success.
Yeah.
That's a really interesting point. Like a lot of ways, it's funny because now people like just assume we're people. I mean, having kids and I probably look really tired all the time, so people assume we're probably 10 years older than we are. But so we don't get the shocked as much of like, oh my gosh, you guys are so young.
I just hang out around older people.
No, us too. But I think it is something you do have in the beginning where if you are young, you kind of have it to your advantage, like you said, where you kind of impress people by being
a go-getter,
and professional, and you do all those things. It's like this extra compounding effect that maybe somebody else doesn't
honestly
have.
like just trying.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
No doubt. Yeah.
It makes such a difference.
So I got a question for you.
Yeah.
Like, so I was shocked. I mean, maybe 6-7 months ago, I had people starting reaching out and asking for advice. And I was like, wait, hold on a second. Wait, it's like, I was like, did you not see? I guess they didn't read my mind and realize that I was asking for advice from someone yesterday. Are you sure I'm the right guy? But it was kind of shocking to me, especially because we're still young and like, what do I have to offer? And I think we do have stuff to offer, but more specifically for you guys, if you were talking to like an 18-year-old, 19-year-old, 20-year-old, even post collegiately, at 22, what advice would you give someone getting started just in general in business or wanting to be an entrepreneur or like a self-employed person?
It's a hard one.
I'd have
almost
so
feels
many
like
books.
the person that DMs you.
I'd have so many books.
I say books, but I feel
recommendations.
like that feels like the DM is like, do you have any tips? And it's like, I gotta have something else to work with.
Like, give me a well-rounded question.
Yeah, I'm like, it's not. I mean, I guess the one thing is there's not just like this magic answer to success. Like there is, but there's not.
And that success isn't a destination.
It's not a destination.
We
That's
talked
honestly
about
the biggest
that.
thing.
We talked about that so much when we were first starting to experience quote unquote success, at least in like a monetary form, because that's, I feel like, the most validating when you start making real money. It feels like, oh, okay, this is what it means to be successful,
Right.
whatever it is you're doing.
Right.
Yeah.
But I remember like we were constantly like trying to grow. We were trying to grow the business to make more money, to bring in more income, come up with different revenue streams. And then I remember being like, well, how much is enough? Like, what are we trying? What level are we trying to get to? And I don't remember who was sharing with us. I think we were talking to like a mentor. We were talking to a mentor, and he was like, you know, success is not a destination; it's the journey. And as you move forward in your life, like being in a not like a state of success, but success just isn't a place where you get to and then you're there.
Yeah,
Right.
that's where you have like
You don't
unfulfilling.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's not an arrival thing. And I think, I mean, it shifted a lot of the ways we ran our business too, where we
Yeah.
actually created a much better work-life balance instead of this hustle. And
And
we still
chasing
work
more
hard,
money.
but we're like, well, what do we want our life to look like?
Yeah.
Especially now we have kids, and what does success look like now?
Yeah.
And I can do that now because you can't. And then you still have goals of where you want to be, and you make those steps along the way to put yourself in that position. But
Aligning your life with what you want
just
it
like,
to be.
figure out what is success. Because if it's just like a lot of money or whatever it is, that's not going to make you happy. And but I'm a big believer in dreaming big, like for sure that, and pretty much anything's possible people throw it out like financial freedom, all that stuff.
Yeah.
But
It's cliche, but
yeah,
it's
cliche. There's
true.
all these things, but ultimately, what do you actually want your life to look like? And what's something really cool, whether it's like out of generosity or like, I think a lot of people do have cool ideas, but they don't give themselves permission to dream.
Yeah.
When in reality, it's like, okay, what is it? What would need to happen to make that happen? And then you just
Right.
start walking that backwards. You're like, oh, it totally is possible. It may take 5 years, it may take 2 years,
Yeah.
it may take 10 years. I mean, for us, we had like a 5-year plan to hit our like, when we first started business, we're like, all right, man, if we could shoot weddings and like make 6 figures, this would be crazy.
Right.
And I think it was like, was it our first full year?
Mm-hmm.
Which was insane. We were not thinking like as our first full year in business, and then like we're in tax, we're like, oh my gosh, like that was awesome. And it was like,
Yeah.
I mean, it was like such a blessing for us. And I mean, we also were, I mean, I think when you're coming at it from trying to be generous and you're focusing on value and not just like a byproduct. But
So like I guess what I'm gleaning here is take practical steps. Obviously, like figure out what you want to achieve, and then start taking the practical steps of like how to get
Yes,
to that, or how to get into that continuum of success.
yeah,
there.
I think, I don't know, it comes back to the value. When you're providing real value, it's sustainable.
So solve a problem and
Like
continue
if you're
to-
solving a real problem and creating value to other people, like that's something that could grow
right.
versus, and that like results in money. I think people have like a bad stigma with money because it can be bad. Like people can be really rich and take advantage of people and be what's those like exploitative, or like, yeah, there's like, especially you look at history, like there's empires and they just conquered people and taxed them and stole their money. Like, yeah. Like that's not like creating value. That's taking it and potentially stunting economic growth.
Yeah, you're just stealing.
Yeah, but I think a lot of people kind of like draw comparisons to like wealthy people
To like
and
dictators.
people, and they came at it at two totally different ways.
Yeah.
And one is like not sustainable, and one is.
Right.
And that's where wealth isn't a bad thing. But if you
no.
get it from a bad thing or you use it for bad things, obviously, that sounds simple and a lot of people talk about it, but just that basic idea where there's so much negative, like talk about
there's
money,
tons
like,
of negative stigma with wealth and
even
building
from
wealth.
like the job market. If you're coming out of college and you're like looking for a job or you're going to start a business, like even in a job, if you doing that job doesn't create more money for the business than what you're getting paid, the job shouldn't exist.
Yeah, I think
But some people don't
COVID
even think
highlighted
through
a lot
that.
of
Pretty
that.
much.
I mean, and then everybody was upset. The crazy thing is
Upset
that
about
everybody's
it.
upset about it. Well, it's like, well, the company has to look at it from a value perspective. And I think realistically, we as humans should look at it as a value perspective. We should strive, and I think there is something innate in us that we should strive to create a value in some way for whoever, right? If it's another person or if it's another business. But I think the practical component, a lot of people fail to take the steps, and it sounds so cliche and it sounds so simple, but when you believe enough in yourself to be confident and put that step out in faith and just kind of dive in, that's where it starts. I think a lot of people, I get DMs probably once a month, if not more. Hey, I'm thinking about getting into real estate, right? Okay, well, what did you do to get into real estate? Like, first of all, it's like, okay, you want to be my competitor? No, I'm just kidding. But truthfully, I love to share with like other people. I think that's the abundance mindset, right?
Yeah.
Of like, yeah, there's plenty to go around.
Community over
But-
competition.
but people fail to take this first step. The only sure way to make sure that you have zero success is to not try, right? And to not
Totally.
do. And so I think that's the biggest thing that, I mean, you guys did was you just went, hey, we're 19 years old, like 19 and 20, but we're 19 years old.
19 when I started.
19 when you started. Like, why can't I do this?
Yeah.
Why can't I be luxury? Why can't I be a dominant brand? And now media icons on the peninsula that truthfully everybody knows in the media space. So, but before we kind of wrap up the show here, we have like a glaring. There's something new that's come about. There's a new business, and it's not Hugo Film Co. It's not 17th and Ocean.
On the block.
There's a new kid on the block. Who is it? What is it?
It's your business.
It's my business.
Don't rub me
We're
into
having
this.
a baby. Kids,
We are not having a baby.
No, we're having a baby.
So so like we talked about earlier in this episode, we kind of brought a little
You
mention
teased
to
it,
it.
yeah.
We teased it a little bit. We have Stillwater Studio coming in hot. Finally, it's all coming to fruition. We're in it right here. So I don't remember.
Well, it might
You
have been
were
at your
talking-
house. It
basically,
might have
you were
been at
talking
your
about doing a podcast, and
Yeah.
I was like, well, I mean, we do all these commercials and stuff. It can't be that hard to just like set up a decent looking podcast.
There's a lot
And here we are months later
with a lot of time put into
a
it.
lot of time.
Hey,
but-
I always said from the beginning, I was like, whatever said John says, multiply it by 10. Cost and
10x is
time.
easier than
Cost and
2x,
time.
baby.
10x is easier than 2x. Check out
Good
the
book.
book.
That's a good
Check out the
book.
book.
Use my link.
So, I mean, it kind of blossomed right from I went to you guys and I was like, I want to start a podcast.
Mm-hmm.
And then the conversation went into like, there's a lot of people that say they want to start a podcast and a lot of people that have podcasts.
Yeah.
And they can't do it anywhere on the peninsula specifically. And they can't do it at a very high quality. And then we were like, well, you guys do media production at a really high quality.
Yeah.
And I feel like we could find a
figure this
space and
out.
produce it. So
Mhm. Yeah, no, I'm super excited. I think that really came out of like the same idea of, okay, what's not being provided that people would want and
Right.
need and serve, like
How
make
are
their
you
life
solving
easier.
a problem?
And I think as we talked about, like, okay, someone may like, if you look at all the steps, you're like, okay, you got to find someone to hire, and then find an editor, and then like find a set and all these things. And like we'll have clients where we've filmed interviews and we're trying to find a set to film. And then
right.
I'm getting there really early with our team to set up all the lighting and then making sure noise. There's like so many variables, and we're like, well, if we could have a spot that's just ready to go and we can show up and set up and then create a turnkey solution where our clients can show up in a relaxed environment, have a drink, have a coffee, and then film,
Get up and leave.
get up and leave and have our team take care of it from there. And I think that was even everything from like the little details about like, okay, if you're starting a podcast and you don't have no media collateral and you need headshots, like we have a backdrop and everything where you can shoot that. And if you're bringing a guest on, like, I think just all those little things that come up, if we could just have it all taken care of, kind of like construction, where if you're getting into a house thing, like, oh, I need a plumber. Oh, and then you're calling, You're trying to get referrals. And as much as we can just make it easy where you just show up and you can focus on what you're doing best and building your brand and whatever your podcasts are doing, or if you're doing a course or anything like that. So, that's the space. We're in it. You've been taking a long, crazy ride with me of what it's like to be my husband or wife or whatever you want to call it.
Who's the work husband? Who's the work wife?
Who's the Jonathan's my work wife.
Could have said it, yeah.
No, but I think that like this is another obviously expansion of kind of both of our brains of how do we create that value, how do we solve that problem, but also just kind of like a new endeavor of something that seems obviously it's not an easy thing to do to craft an environment. Now we have the ability to have 4 people in a studio on camera together, even more at some components. We have it lit well. We're getting really great video, audio, and then we have the ability to kind of change it, maneuver it, display logos, do all kinds of different stuff to kind of craft like a very custom experience for everybody that comes in.
Yeah.
And promote it, because I think it all started with us discussing podcasts as a medium for really showcasing the individual behind the brand, but also the ethos of the company. Yeah. So we'll be taking on, some select clients to kind of fill the space and, enough to where we can confidently produce at a very, very high level.
Yeah. And I think that's the thing, focusing on the quality over quantity. I mean, that's the way that we've been a boutique studio, where we're not just how much can we like cram in. We're really focused on that quality side. And I'm excited for the space to as we roll it out slowly with like the select few like clients we bring on, to be able to even like tailor it as we work with them and see like, hey, what would be great for the space and how can we make it?
How can we make your
the
business
most valuable?
Where's the ROI?
Yeah.
That's fantastic. Thank you both for coming on. This won't be the last time they see your shining faces on my podcast. I'm sure we'll have you on again, but thank you guys for taking the time.
Thanks for having us.
We appreciate it.
Cheers to the future.
Cheers to the future.
Woo.
Yeah.
Awesome.